Hello, SHL. It's us again. Episode number 7 of Too Long Didn't Listen. I am Rich.
And I'm Akamai.
And welcome. So this week we're even less prepared than we were last week.
But it's 7, so we're feeling lucky.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So the things we have to talk about are very few. Other than that, we're just going to jump into questions. But first, I did want to mention that we knew this last week, but it wasn't official yet, I think. But you are have taken over as head updater for Dangles.
Woo-hoo!
Dangles stepped down. Yeah. He's, I guess, quite busy. He actually also just stepped down as GM, I think, yesterday or today.
Did he? Okay, I missed that.
Yeah.
To preface this, part of the reason I'm so completely unprepared is because I've been out of town at a coaching clinic, working and learning and meeting Olympians and doing all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm tremendously unprepared for today, but having a great time. So I'm really disappointed that Dangles is stepping down. I like that he's been sort of a steady and reliable presence in the league, and he's done a lot of the behind the scenes work that I think people aren't necessarily privy to. He's done I know from being an updater and from taking over from him, he did a ton of real reorganization and behind the scenes consolidation for updates. He did some procedural stuff, and he put together a bunch of sort of instructional manuals for new updaters coming in. So he really left me in a positive spot. If he hadn't done that beforehand, I don't know what I would have done this weekend, because I'd hoped to have a little more time to myself than I actually did. But it was really fortunate that he left. He definitely, you could say he left the place better than he found it. And that is definitely one of my goals as a member of SHL. So thank you, Dangles, for all that you have done and hopefully continue to do. I know you've been sick. I hope you feel better soon. And I hope that life allows you to come back to SHL raring to go, or at least allows you to continue with solid player updating. I hope you still enjoy the site. And you will definitely be missed. You've done a phenomenal job, and I really do think the league will feel your loss pretty substantially.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and it was this morning that he posted the announcement in the SHL media that he's stepping down as GM of the Steelhawks. So, yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, he's definitely been even the short amount of time that he's been in the league, it's just a little over a year. He's been very active, very high post count. So, yeah.
Yeah, the jobs he decided to take on are the sorts of jobs that are instrumental to running the league smoothly. So that's not small. And a lot of them are, in that sense, sort of the pay is not worth the amount of effort and contribution. It's definitely the things he decided to take on and really improve were labors of love. So the league will definitely be better off for him having been in it.
Yes, for sure. I guess there's not a whole lot else to say there.
Yeah, that really sounded like a funeral speech. I'm really sorry. I don't think you're dead, Dangles. I'm really sorry.
So, yeah, I guess that's kind of the only thing we had prepared. So, do you want to just go to questions, and we'll start knocking those out? And yeah. Okay, so we actually had a bunch of questions since last week.
Thank you.
And I guess I didn't think about this beforehand, but I guess we'll just go in order because I didn't look at them closely enough to kind of consider which ones might go together.
No, again, we're winging it. It's fine.
All right, so we'll start at the top with Harry Hands. Which stars do you think will break out? Sue, that's kind of a tricky question. Because, well, first of all, there's a ton of people in the league, and I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure I don't know all of them, so I'm sure there's people that are flying under the radar that I don't know about, certainly. Man, that's a really difficult question. I think you have to look at Hamilton and probably Manhattan the most closely for players that are going to have bigger seasons than you would expect, simply because you're going to have players there playing significant minutes.
Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the two teams I would probably look at most closely for players that I would expect to break out. I guess other than that, I haven't done enough. We didn't do any preparation or real research into who the other players might be. I guess probably Buffalo would be a good place to look to, and Portland.
Yeah, I'm actually personally looking forward to, I think we could get some breakout stars or some shakeups from line changes or rearranges. Um, I think in absence of any other information, I think we could see maybe he doesn't really count as a breakout star, because he already had previously sort of a star sort of beginner season and then tanked a little bit, but I think we could see Theo Kane rise to prominence again this season if the Blizzard end up making some adjustments. He's moved from second line to first line, so he'll be playing more ice time. But then with the updates he's done a little bit more in terms of endurance and sort of steady TPE earning to back up his play. So I think in terms of like if you're looking for who's going to improve yet again on a stacked team, I think he could break out, maybe not in terms of overall league, like he's not particularly a surprise at this point, but I think we could see him have some success at first line that he didn't really get last season. Not to say he wasn't successful. I mean, obviously the Blizzard made it all the way to all but the cup, but I think he tailed off a little bit, especially towards the end of the season and in playoffs, and I think we could see him sort of regain that elite status.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've got a couple of names I can mention here, actually. I was just looking, and the two Portland guys I would look at probably would be Don Pellegrino and Maximilian Wachter. Probably mispronouncing that terribly. But they look like they should be in a good position, just given kind of the shape of the roster and their TPE levels and the number of minutes they should be playing. Neither of them had great seasons last season. So I would expect those two, one of those two or both, to have much better seasons this season. And Harry Hands actually is probably a good candidate as well. I was going to look for his last season numbers, but he's kind of hitting that point of TBE where he should start making a pretty substantial impact, and he should be playing the kind of minutes on a roster like Manhattan's that he should have the opportunity to have a breakout season. And yeah, he's
Agreed.
not even. He's definitely. I'm going through the season 30 stats, and I'm not even really seeing him anywhere. So there he is, 14 points. Yeah, he should break out for sure. Only having 14 points last season, I would expect him to have probably double that or more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a huge stair step between your first one or two seasons in the SHL and your third season. So I think a couple of the people who were top TPE earners with me from season 29, who are on sort of less stacked rosters, I think they really have an opportunity to sort of step up and showcase their potential. In addition to Harry Hands, I'd really like to see some sort of upward mobility from LA. I think Bishop, I know he stayed pretty steady with his updates, so I think he could be in a good position to break out within the LA roster. Meanwhile, LA has sort of been quietly but consistently collecting players that they sort of hope to keep and they think fit their image. So I think if you're sort of on the lookout for who is going to do materially better than they did historically season-wise within the last couple, I think as a team, LA could be poised to have a much better season this season than they have in the past. I think they're ready to with some call-ups and some line changes, I think they could be ready to do some damage.
Yeah, I would agree with that actually completely. They're kind of on the edge, I think, of transitioning from that kind of. I mean, they haven't been that good, but they're so close. I feel like
They're a
um,
fringe team. I feel like they're actually like rebuild schedule wise. I feel like they're a little bit where New England was 2 seasons ago, where they're ready to add more players to their roster who won't be a TPE contribution necessarily this particular season, but next season could have a huge impact if they stay on trajectory.
yeah. And last season they had. Oh, geez, now my brain is completely lost. Kekkonen had what I would probably, I guess, what you would call a breakout season. He started off like really, really hot early in the season, cooled off a little bit, but still had a really solid season, 45 points. So, I mean, I expect him to probably have a similar season. So, I mean, it's not really a breakout season, but another solid season. And then some other guys stepping up, like Pellegrino, forget the first name, 4-4 player, Tony.
Yep.
Getting some more points. Of course, like you mentioned, Bishop, Crutchfield's solid. Carlson. They picked up Ryan King, I think, in a trade. I want to say he's one of the guys from my draft class. Pretty solid player, just over 1,000 TP. So yeah, they've got guys there that I would expect to. I don't know. I don't want to break out though because they're already deep enough to where nobody's going to be playing like huge minutes. But yeah, I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, that's the thing about them is like I feel like they may not have one individual player, aside from maybe Bishop, who makes like, or maybe like Crutch, who makes a huge individual jump. But I feel like they could string together enough improvement where maybe we see them squeak into the playoffs. You know, maybe we see them, even if they're just sort of their overall team is improving on their minus, their point spread. I think if they really work at, adding the younger guys to the line, seeing what works best for them, ice time wise, special teams wise, I think if they really pay attention to the coaching side of things, where they keep their young players involved and they get them to continue to improve, I think they have a lot of upside potential. So I think in terms of like, okay, maybe we won't see an individual contributor sort of break out to some degree, but I think we could see sort of rising potential from the whole team.
It's really hard to call a breakout like that. But if I was going to pick somebody on LA, I would pick Tony Pellegrino to have that kind of season. He's almost 900, 850 TPE right now.
Yeah, so he's right on that tipping point.
And he didn't have a huge season last season. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like. I feel like on their roster, he's got the potential of having a much better season. Oh, I guess 30 points. Never mind. I guess he had a better season than I thought. I mean, it's not like a great season, but it's not like a bad season at all either. So I don't know. Maybe that's probably. I guess maybe he won't really break out, but a better season, I would say.
Yeah, we could see him having a spike though.
Yeah. Let's see who else. Are there any other teams that I guess stand out for the rest of the?
I was gonna say Buffalo, but they've made some moves away from some more active players. I know they picked up one rookie who was sort of a rookie for rookie trade in that I think the other one wasn't particularly active. Maybe it'll be a good trade personality-wise for the team in the long run. But I think, again, I just don't see them having enough firepower to sustain anybody with a breakout. They don't have enough gas in the tank. I feel similarly for Portland. I think that maybe if they had had some better call-ups, if they had had some rookies who were more ready, if like Bjornsson, Ty's player, if Ty hadn't decided to make the jump to Manhattan, I think they could have seen some more success. But again, they're as a team, they're really still reeling from the the 5 season worth of spent and lost picks and opportunity cost from the tampering issue.
Yeah, well, that's actually the reason I think you will see players break out in Portland, because you're going to have players who are at a lower TPE level playing substantial minutes and seeing the kind of playing time that's going to put them in a position to have big seasons.
That's true. That's true.
It's really hard to say, but I still think Don Pellegrino and MP7, Maximilian Wachter, Portland, I think they're going to have good seasons. And then Harry Hands, I think those are probably the 3 that I would pick if I was going to pick. But I still think it's really difficult to make that kind of prediction.
Agreed.
So, you want to move on? I guess we spent a lot of time on just a small amount of people and teams, but I don't know what else to say there. So,
no, I think we kind of covered the bases.
All right. Early predictions for the season. I think. Oh boy, it's really tough. And I haven't paid close enough attention to the player movement to maybe make an accurate prediction. I think obviously Calgary's going to continue to be very, very good. I've definitely picked them for top of the West. I don't think there's anybody who would argue with that. Or, I mean, maybe some of the other teams in the West, but from the outside, I don't see anybody else better than them in the West. But after that, probably Edmonton. And after that in the West, I'm not sure. I don't know enough about a lot of the teams. I think Portland's still in a tough spot. But then between those, so Calgary and Edmonton at the top, Portland probably at the bottom. I'm not really sure where the rest of the teams fall in the middle in the West.
I would argue for Edmonton having one more season towards the top of the middle, just because I think they have even if some of their players have either gone active or have started to think about retiring after the amount of regression they're facing, I think that overall their roster is still deep enough that they may have like one more season where they eke out some success.
I think they're still the second best team in the West, but I think the gap is widened between them and Calgary, and I think the gap has narrowed between the teams below them. I just don't know how much and in what order.
If it's going to matter in terms of simming potential, it's always kind of hard to say.
Yeah. So I don't know. The West is hard, I think, hard to predict for me. And again, I haven't paid as close attention to player movement. And actually, I'm not even that familiar with the teams other than like Calgary, Edmonton, LA, Portland. I don't know Texas, Seattle, or Winnipeg well enough, even though I was on Winnipeg for a period. I don't know how good they are.
Winnipeg, I think, is tough just because from what I remember, the amount of players who are sort of still contributing to the activity of the league and doing their activity checks and doing their trainings, I believe from last that article came out, I think they were one of the teams who were sort of in the bottom. So I think they may struggle, especially with some GM changing hands. I think that between a brand new GMing team replacing Leafs for coaching wise and trying to figure out what they're going to do, I think they'll be tough, even with some like sort of friendly advice from Leafs and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of in a tough spot where it's really time for sort of a couple of rebuilding years here, and not necessarily that they'll do a full rebuild, but I don't know, maybe that they ought to consider it. I don't think it makes sense for rebuilds, at least from the SHL side, to try to go kind of like onesie-twosie rebuilds. I think it makes sense for you to sort of scrap and build up picks and sort of build up your war chest in that sense, and get yourselves into a better position. So I think they could see some rocky times ahead.
I was actually just looking at their roster, and they're actually really stacked at D. but I think they have like 2 lines of forwards, and are after those top 6, they're pretty thin.
Yeah.
And I think that and yeah, the like you said, the new GM situation, it's hard to say how that's going to go in terms of like lines and so on. So yeah, I guess I think I would probably agree they're probably going to struggle, but it's really hard to say because they do have some very good top end players, like top tier. Their D is legit. They've got like 5 defensemen that are legit. Like they're in their top 5 defensemen, the lowest TPE is 695, so that's very, very not bad. But yeah, not great at forward. If they can really like lean on those top 2 lines,
Yeah.
they'll probably be okay. But yeah, I think with the GM change, it'll probably be tough for them. So I might put them second from the bottom above Portland.
Agreed. I think that Seattle, I think that they're building a roster where they'll be okay, but I think they'll be sort of solidly in the middle. Last I remember from looking at them, they had some holes, and I don't think that again, GM change is always tough to weather through. I don't see them as really coming back from that. And again, I don't know what their pick situation is like. I don't know what their trade situation or active player roster is like. I'm definitely less familiar with the Western teams simply because they're not in my conference. So I don't pay as much attention to them.
Yeah, their
But
roster
I
is
have
quite
some
good.
good yeah, I have some good friends on Seattle. I think they have the potential. Again, I feel a little bit like them about sort of similarly to how I feel about LA. I definitely think they have the upside potential, and it's just can they capitalize on it in a time where they're able to go up and win a cup. And I think like the timing compared to some of the other rebuilding timelines with the other teams in their division, I think in maybe 1 or 2 seasons they'll come into that sort of now or never period, and I hope for them, I like Seattle a lot. I have a lot of respect for them as a team. I hope for them it all goes well and works out that way. But for the upcoming season in particular, I think it'll be another situation where they'll have some good lines and some good coaching, and they'll do pretty well, but they won't materially make a dent in playoffs. And of course, it's always tough to say, but I just don't think it's a lot of young players, and I don't know that they have the firepower as a group, even as a fairly active group, to sustain a good trajectory.
Yeah. So that leaves, let's see. So we've got
So that leaves Texas.
Texas, which they still have a pretty strong roster.
They do, and Texas has a long history of people who are Texas loyal. They build that kind of loyalty well, and they seem to sort of do their best to keep all their players active and invested. I think they made an interesting choice regarding the goalie situation. I think they drafted some good choices to sort of backfill Storm there. So I think we could see them sort of coming back into their own, but again, they're rebuilding after several seasons of success previously, of having some pretty good seasons, and I think that I don't know that they'll have the manpower this season to sort of take it and run with it.
They'll have some. Well, let's see. I guess they've got a couple. They're going to have a couple of strong players in their third line at forward. It looks like because they've got Kowalski, BBP's player Charlie Boy. I don't know how you say that, but and Rick James, all 700 TP forwards. Looks like probably would be their third line. Some kind of combination in there. But I like that they've got what could potentially be a full line of S25 forwards in Durden, Allen, and Jester, and I really hope that's a line right there that they run because S25 was awesome. And no, I think they've got a pretty good team. I would expect them to make the playoffs. I think. I don't know where they'll fall exactly in the third or fourth behind, like where I would put them. I don't know. I don't know how
Right.
it's going to shake out, obviously, but where I would put them, I'm not sure, third or fourth there. I think I would probably go. I think still Seattle and Texas probably for third and fourth. I don't know in which order necessarily.
Yeah, I'm doing kind of the same thing. I'm thinking Calgary at 1, Edmonton at 2, and then Seattle and Texas can duke it out for 3 and 4
I would probably say that LA is would
in
fight them,
contention.
but I think if I was going to, put them in an order, I have to put LA below them still. But I think LA's right there.
Yeah, I think one more season maybe. And again, you know, the sim does what it wants. I think I could totally be wrong on that. But I think the third and fourth spot are going to be much tighter than it has been previously. But I certainly don't see Winnipeg or Portland sort of jumping up and making the surprise entrance.
No, I mean it's certainly possible, but I think it's just if we're making predictions, that's I wouldn't put them in the playoffs. I don't think right now.
Yeah, my money's not there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. So okay, so there's the West. Do you have anything else to say there? Or do you want to just move on to the East?
Nope.
All right, yeah, I think it's tough to call, but I think that's about right. The East then. So I'm hesitant to put us at the top because we didn't really have a great regular season, and if it takes us a long time to find our lines again, but it's hard not to, given that we won the Cup. I think
I actually, yeah, I mean, you know me, I do love to be a homer, but
I still think
I just,
West Kendall is very, very good.
yeah, they're extremely competitive.
And their depth is still technically better than ours, I think. Wait, did they lose? They lost Rice, though, didn't they? So they may have fallen off a little bit in terms of top-end forwards. Let me take a look. Yeah, Rice is gone, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Or was he gone last season? 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's right. Ote plays D, though, probably. Yeah, so I think maybe they're a little bit worse than they were last season. But they still have some very, very good and very high TPE players and a lot of depth. With, I think, is EJ still a third liner there at 929 TPE? Like, that's ridiculous. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know that any other team has that kind of depth. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I can't really not. I think I have to put us first just because we won the Cup. We did have a really, really good run at the end of the season. I think you kind of have to just with, the Cup win. I don't know that that's how it'll shake out, but if we find our chemistry like we did at the end of the last season, we're really, really good.
Yeah, agreed. I think that Minnesota will still be a contender. They're really, really good in the regular season, but I think part of that is that they don't have a lot of complication line-wise. So I think that they do a little artificially well in the early season and then tail off as some of the teams with deeper rosters start to catch up and figure out their lines. So I think they'll still be towards the top, but I think we may see them start to be not as dominant as they have been in past seasons.
It's really hard to tell, like, because when you've got teams like, and it was more Manhattan than anybody, but teams that are able to have success playing their top lines for a lot of minutes. It's hard to look at a roster and say, okay, this team's going to be good, this team's going to be bad. I think the West was a little better about that in terms of kind of like playing their lines a little more evenly than the East was. But it's hard to look at Manhattan's roster and say, oh yeah, they're definitely going to make the playoffs, because I certainly didn't see it coming last season, and I still can't look at their roster and justify them being as good as they are.
The only thing I will say about that is I think it's pretty obvious that Hamilton and Buffalo will still be at the bottom.
Yeah.
Hamilton, because they're doing a huge all-at-once rebuild, which I think is smart, and Buffalo because they're Buffalo and they don't have that much firepower. Um, but Manhattan is really interesting in that they've got great top line and not much depth. Um, but the top line they do have, they really capitalize on endurance. So even though they're really sort of overworking maybe those players on their top line, they can afford to do that because they've built their lines smartly and encourage their players to bank in endurance because they know they're a shallow team in that sense. Whereas somewhere like Toronto, you look at their roster and you think, wow, like why aren't they better? But then you look at the sort of ice time and how they're splitting, um, where the decisions have been made regarding coaching, and you look at their overall TPE count, and you think, wow, they should be better. But then you look at the roster, how players are updating, and then you sort of realize that they're not as good as they should be, but if you really dig into it, they're sort of like a quick look at them, they look good, but you sort of start to see the cracks in the veneer, I think. Um, so again, I think it's one of those situations. I think I'm really looking forward to the season. Um, I'm hoping that it's sort of hotly contested because that's more exciting for the league, I think. I think that keeps people invested in sort of checking back to see what the scores were and who had upsets. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think
I
yeah,
think
definitely.
when you don't have those obvious huge imbalances, it's really healthier for the league.
Definitely.
Um, so yeah, so I think it should be interesting. I think it's one of those things where in both conferences, you know who the bottom two are going in more or less. You could always see some surprises. Um, But barring any blockbuster trades, wildly unforeseen circumstances, you got Buffalo, Hamilton, Winnipeg, and Portland sort of as bottom feeders. And then that means that fourth spot to get into playoffs is really contested. So you have at least two teams, sometimes even three, who are actively invested in the day by day updates of the league. So I guess if I had to sort it numerically,
Yeah, I was just gonna say let's try and lay it out.
yeah, let's do
In a way.
that.
I would say 1 and 2 could be either us or West Kendall. I think they're not as clear as they are in the West. I don't think in terms of like who the dominant teams are, but I think it's fairly clear that we're the two best teams in the conference. Um, After that, I'm less sure about where, and this is the middle three would be Toronto, Minnesota, Manhattan. But and here this one's a lot trickier in terms of who's actually gonna take those last two playoff spots. I think. Um, I think I would probably take Toronto of those three to be the favorite to be the or be one of the teams that is more likely to get a playoff spot. But after that, I really don't know because Manhattan overperformed significantly, I think, to everybody's expectations last season. And I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that again. So, and Minnesota
The
still has a pretty good
only
team. So I don't
yeah,
know.
the only thing I wonder about that is Manhattan did have some um draftings and player signings. If they're playing most of their people down, which I think they are, it may not matter. But I think they could have some trouble in the future, just because I think they will eventually, because it's Kez. I think he will sort of start to push for more equal ice time when they have a roster where it makes sense to do that. Um, and I don't know, maybe they do it really smartly and they workhorse their top line until they have second and third lines that are good enough to really backstop the whole team. So they sort of have an even pattern of success, but I think they're going to be spotty for the next little bit here. So I think if I were going to rank them numerically, I think I would probably put to me, I actually would put West Kendall, New England, and Minnesota in any of the top three. Minnesota only because they have, like I said before, I think they sort of start their lines early and ride them. So they have some early success that trickles off as other people experiment with their lines a bit. Um, and so I think for at least for regular season, I think any one of them, of the three of them, I think all three will make playoffs. Um, and I think that it's a toss-up for President's Trophy. Um, I would probably put New England maybe even second or third, just because I feel like we'll still have some line changes where enough line changes to do in a short enough period of time season-wise that it could impact our regular season performance, but then have us do better in playoffs. And then Toronto and Manhattan to me are fighting for 4 and 5, and who is just a toss-up of timing and circumstance and coaching. Um, and then again, Hamilton and Buffalo are really solidly bottom for me. I think Buffalo they might ascend to 7, woohoo, just because Hamilton is in that really, really firm period of rebuilding, whereas Buffalo has sort of gathered some active people.
Yeah,
But I still think it's not going to be enough.
yeah, Buffalo's been pretty good about. I mean, this is all relative because I've been Buffalo's updater for 2 seasons now, I guess, or maybe just 1. No, 2. I don't know, but they're doing better in terms of the number of people that are updating more regularly. So that's good. We need that. Yeah, I don't know. I have a really hard time calling this. Calling the East. So I'm just going to say West Kendall, us, Minnesota, Toronto, Manhattan, Buffalo, Hamilton.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I'm going with.
I like it.
Yeah. Did I leave Manhattan out? Crap. I did,
No,
didn't
you
I?
got it.
No, I mean, did I leave
Did you?
him out of the playoffs?
Oh, in the ranking.
I think I did. I just completely now forgot what I said. It's fine. I was while you were talking, I was looking at the roster and I had forgotten they got Ty Bjornsson, because last season their goalies are, I think, what allowed them to overperform, because their goalies played really well. Kimmo Lokinen only had like 7 losses and 25 starts, and he's not great.
Nor was Bauer.
Yeah, and Bauer too. Yeah, Bauer. They
Bauer,
split the starts evenly, 25 and 25. And Lokinen had 17 wins, 7 losses, 1 overtime loss, and Bauer had 13 wins, 9 losses, 3 overtime losses. And these are not premier goalies by any stretch. Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, and that player was quite low TPE, if I remember right, too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, to have that kind of goalie perform at that level. I mean. But so I was going to bring that up, but then I realized, they have Ty now, so they actually have a legit goalie. So, but their depth, I don't know if they can match what they did last season. So I'm going to leave them out, put them at the 5 spot.
Yeah, I think it's not realistic to have Mixie have a record-breaking season every season.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Mixie, but not happening.
Yeah. I guess we covered that predictions, unless we want to actually go into like playoff and playoff predictions too, but I think that's too much.
Nope. Yeah, I think we covered it plenty.
Yeah.
Our listeners are now falling asleep.
So the next question, that was only our first 2 questions. We're
super living up to our name right now.
We're really just flying through them. Ravens question next. This is one I was looking forward to a little bit. If you had to recreate right now, what kind of player would you make and why? So, yeah, this is something I've thought about quite a bit, and actually kind of over on the GOMHL, to get on my hockey league. Yeah, that's kind of like why I was over there to begin with, just to experiment with a defenseman. For me, there's a bunch of things I want to try. One of them, the one thing I want to try most, is not possible with our player templates, unfortunately.
Which is
what? But Well, if I'm recreating, I'm going to make a forward first of all because I discovered over on the GOMHL that I'm not a huge fan of defense. It just doesn't. I don't know. It's not as interesting to me.
It's boring.
I mean, it's completely different, and I feel like there's less room for experimentation. I'm sure other people feel differently, but in my eyes, I don't feel as able to kind of branch out and try weird stuff. So as a forward, what I want to try is I want to try skating, puck handling, and strength. So like a
Okay.
puck carrying possession guy. I think that'd be really interesting. But that's not a thing that can be done with our player templates, unfortunately. So realistically, and I've been kind of having this in my head for a while, just what I'm going to do when I recreate. It'll be a wing. It'll be probably two-way, or it'll be a sniper. But either way, it's going to be scoring strength, and then obviously two-way, it'll be defense. And then if I do the two-way, it'll be scoring, defense, puck handling. And if I do the sniper, it'll be scoring, puck handling, strength.
Okay.
So, yeah, I like the idea of possession, and so I definitely want to do puck handling as one of my strengths, and then I think the two that make the most sense would be defense or strength with possession in mind. I don't really want to do a skating strength. Just doesn't.
I think it's probably one of the weaker of the decision-making attributes.
I mean, it's really important, and you definitely want to get it high. But I don't know the difference between 90 and 99. I mean, it's hard to say that the difference in any stat between 90 and 99 is that important. But I just want to try something different because it seems like most of the players in the league are either scoring, passing, and then skating, puck handling. That's kind of the standard build, and I find that a little bit boring. I mean, not that it's not good. It's just I want to try something a little different.
The other thing that makes that interesting is the scoring passing gap. Like, let's say, this is something I've wondered about, actually. And I know that you sort of just moved away from this, so I'm preaching to the wrong person here. But I think it'd be interesting, because if you say, okay, I'm not going to make either scoring and passing a strength, which I think there's at least one build you can do that with. I'd have to look at it closer, but
power forward and probably enforcer, I would guess.
Yeah, so like, let's say for the sake of argument, you made either scoring or passing your weakness. I'm going to say scoring just because I feel like passing is a sort of a more rounded.
No, yeah, making scoring or making passing your weakness is actually, I think, really bad. Scoring's not so bad, but
right. So I think it makes, but I think it doesn't necessarily make sense to make passing a strength. You know what I mean?
No.
So I think it'd be really interesting if you said, okay, I'm going to go 290 and I'm going to go 90 and still keep checking a weakness, because I think that just makes sense generally, especially with durability turned off. But
yeah,
do a checking weak player and have scoring and passing as both ordinary attributes, so you can keep that 12 gap without having to sort of dump major points into each. And then you have puck handling, and see, that's the other thing, is what else, like what does the build allow for? But if you went puck handling, defense, and maybe strength, if that's possible, I would have to look at the templates and see what would make that available. But that would be something I'd really like to see.
The templates are weird. Like, if you're gonna be like, the only things that have like non-standard like passing, scoring as a required strength are things like power forward, and the power forward already has 2 pre-designated strengths in checking and strength, so you can only choose one of them. So yeah, we're a little limited. I hope we see that get freed up a little bit by the time I recreate, because I really do want to try that skating, puck handling, strength build. But I'm going to actually expand on my recreate a little bit more, because I've thought a bit more about it.
Yeah, go.
So the player's going to be American, almost certainly. That was my intention originally, was to make an American player, but I saw that that was kind of like the majority of the players coming in were American, so I wanted to be not that. So yeah, it's going to be American, probably going to be from Minnesota. Going to be not my current player is undersized, pretty undersized power forward. So I'm going to go probably a little more standard size, like a 6'2", 6'3", probably. Not that these things matter, but these are things that I've thought about. So let's see what else was there. Yes, so a scoring strength, but I'm going to early on in juniors, I'm going to go actually heavy passing and low strength, even though heavy passing, low scoring, even though it's going to be a strength in the future. But for the juniors, I want to go a passing build. So I think it's more valuable in the juniors because there are fewer passers typically. And also, excuse me, I think they score more goals in the SMJHL. So, what else? I know there's more. This is all kind of in my head. I've been playing around with it, so I don't have any of this kind of solidly written down anywhere. Oh yeah, I want to player render is assuming there's some pictures out there that are decent. I don't know if there will be because his career is still quite young, but be Drake Kajula. He's a former University of North Dakota player. I believe he signed with with Edmonton. I believe.
Okay.
I don't pay attention to NHL, so I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure. I guess that about covers all the stuff that I've put thought into. He's going to be my current player. Lundberg is more about hard work. His success comes from his hard work and less from talent. Whereas my next player is going to be a more gifted player, a more talented player. So, I mean, not that I do a whole lot of like media that kind of expands on my player's personality, but again, these are things that I think about. I could, right.
Technically, you're talking about it in podcasts, which is media, so you totally are.
There you go. All right. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for Recreate. What about you?
Well, I'm actually, a lot of it is still up in the air, I think just because I'm a younger player, but I do know a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to have them be the direct child of Tallow. Not necessarily by blood, probably by adoption. And that's for two reasons. One, I think it's A, more interesting that way. B, sort of fits with Mick's character a little better that way. But C, I would maybe like the opportunity to have a sort of a direct descendant in that sense, hockey child, where you have that lineage. And let's face it, I can't spell, so I can at a push, but I'd like to keep the naming conventions simple. I don't want to have to think up a whole new last name to go with the new first name. So I just as soon keep Tallow's name. And Jay and I have a backstory with the two of with Lockinen and Tallow. So we've decided that when we recreate, we're going to do their children. So that is sort of that's the concrete. That's definitely happening. The other questions, for example, I have not decided whether I'd like a girl or a boy. I haven't decided whether I might like to try goalie or I'd like to stick with a skater template. I haven't decided what player renders I want, partially because I haven't decided whether they're going to be a girl or a boy. So I have a lot of that kind of stuff is still left to question, but the one idea that I had that I really like so far is, and Jay and I had talked about it, having two daughters who are sisters who come in as adopted sisters, but are actually like biological sisters. And I think Jay's inclination was to do another goalie. I don't know if they'll feel the same after having sort of had to ride the patent pony with Mickey for so long. So we'll see. But I I don't know. I sort of like the idea of having, I actually, in that sense, would like to go a bit opposite of the way you were thinking. Mick, for me, was really a talent-driven player. Middle child, family of three brothers, and to some degree work, but a lot of it was sort of talent and luck and being in the right place at the right time. Whereas I'd like the idea I like for the daughters, and part of the reason I like the idea that they would be adopted is I like the idea of building a hockey lineage where it comes from experience and training rather than from and like from opportunity from a financial and social perspective. So it's really nature as opposed to no wait, I got that backwards. So it's really nurture as opposed to nature. That they're maybe not the most physically gifted right off the bat, but they train and they work hard and they have a lot of experience to draw from being the children of famous hockey players. So that's backstory wise, that's definitely where I'm going. So that part is a lot more firm. As for sort of the more in-depth player design, I'd like to get closer and see if we make any template changes. I'd like to see if I'm still a very young player relatively, so Mick is still pretty green behind the ears. So I'd like to get some more experience under my belt, maybe have some real success with a sniper forward build. Maybe I sort of keep the bit between my teeth and go, wow, I really love being a sniper and a forward. Maybe I'll shift to wing instead of doing a center. So I don't know. I'd like to maybe experiment with two-way a little bit just because I feel like that's the potential for really, A, being valuable to your team, but B, having some interesting dynamic to play around with in terms of strength and weaknesses, your build potential, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that's where I am on recreates. Not again, definitely. I think as you can hear, not firm on most of it, but getting there. Starting to sort of play around with the idea. I think unless you're Quinn and you just do it instead of thinking about it, I think that it's kind of natural to once you build your player and you sort of start to really get attached to them as a person and a character in their own right. I think it's sort of natural to start thinking about, okay, what else could I do? Like, so it's in a league where you're limited to doing just one thing at one time for a fairly extended period of time. I think it's kind of natural to start pretty early thinking about your recreate.
Yeah, I was thinking about it very, very early. But part of that was the regret of making a power forward center, which is a rough player to build. But yeah, no, I think it's completely normal. I'm sure a lot of people think about it. I guess that covers that. Do we want to move on? You have anything else?
Only that I think that it makes sense to time your recreate for when you'll have a good shot at going to a team you'd like to be drafted to. At least for juniors. I know it doesn't matter for SHL. You can get traded if you really hate it or whatever, but I think it makes sense to kind of wait and see how the juniors like picks are shaping up before you recreate. So you're pretty likely to go in the draft to somewhere where you'd like to go to. And this is of course assuming that the FA rule gets either tightened up or taken care of. Of course, you can sort of pick your team at this point, but I do think it makes sense to kind of keep an eye on the pulse and go somewhere where you'd like to be a valuable recreate.
See, I'm actually not gonna think about that at all, regardless of, even if I would absolutely love to play for Kelowna again. I love Kelowna. But that's not gonna factor into my decision at all. I'm gonna recreate when I'm done with my current player. And if I get drafted by someone else, so be it. I actually think it's quite interesting to experience the other teams. I think it will be interesting to experience another team's culture, especially in the juniors, see what that's like. I'm kind of looking forward to that, actually, as much as I love Kelowna. So, yeah, I think that covers it. There's a couple more things I could talk about, but I don't think it's very interesting because it's mostly rationale for reasons. So, rationale for choosing Minnesota and the reason for having a tall player and choosing a short render also.
Yeah.
He's not like tiny, but he's like, the code for tiny, which is 5'11".
Yeah.
And the player is going to be the player that I create will be taller than that. But anyway, so let's, I guess, move on to Clardy then. We good?
Raven, you can ask us follow-up questions if you would like to hear more about Rich's thoughts next week.
And this question is actually a little bit dated because this happened. Question was asked before the SMJHL draft, before the players created. So we'll probably have to alter it slightly. But the question, it's not really. I guess it is a question. It's like a two-part. Anyway, talk some about the group of recreates trying to circumvent playing in the SMJHL, which didn't happen. And then, should there be a rule in place that forces players to play in the minors to train? See, this question's weird because this didn't go down like this. But okay, so let's just, I guess, everybody knows what happened at this point, obviously. So, a bunch of players created after the draft. Right. A bunch of players created after the draft and signed with the team, which is totally fine. And of course, because of the way it played out prior, it wasn't the act of creating and then signing, I don't think, that upset people. It was kind of the behavior prior to that. But yeah,
well, I think it's also a thing where I think it was a multi-part incident. Like it was their attention grab sounds so strong, but that's kind of what it was. Is the emphasis they put on trying to circumvent minors in the first place, whether they actually were or not, or it's just a big joke. It kind of doesn't matter from the publicity side of it. So that was one thing. I think if they hadn't done that, I think everyone would have kind of rolled on like they all normally do. The other thing that I think made it a bigger deal is that they all signed at a single time. I think that actually I hadn't really considered it until now, but I think it probably would have flown slightly more under the radar if, they signed, even if it was like a couple hours apart or they were all separate posts. But
I actually don't think so. I actually think that would have. No, I think that would have made people going like, "Oh, so obviously you're trying to make it look like you weren't planning this." I think it doesn't matter whether or not they were planning it all along. To me, and again, like no rules were broken, so I don't know. The issue I think most for me was mostly just like the I don't know, it's just annoying. Obviously, no rules were broken, so I mean, there's no argument there. And actually, I was equally annoyed by the people that were insistent that they broke rules and punishment must be handed out. The whole situation was just annoying on like from every angle, I thought. And I actually don't have anything to say about it because I was kind of avoiding the whole thing just because I knew it was nonsense. And so I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to talk about on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but I was busy. I had a really busy week.
Yeah.
Between prepping for the clinic this weekend and I had some extra hours and logistics because of trying to prep for this weekend. And so I was actually on the pool deck a little bit longer than I had maybe meant to. I had a big parent meeting this week that blew up spectacularly and turned out fine, and I handled it and it was fine. But I had a lot of other like actual drama going on this week. So I really didn't tune into the SHL very much. I kept an eye just because I worry about, I'm a worrier, that's what I do. I worry about the sort of the younger players, especially the people who express interest and want to come to Kelowna. I try to keep an eye out for them just because I think it's the right thing to do, the sort of alums looking out for their new rookies in the locker room, particularly when everyone's sharing a Discord and people are concerned about it. I want the rookies to know that it's a lot of drama a lot of the time, but it's not all drama all the time.
No,
you can find your happy place within the league.
No, yeah, it's because it's the off season. If it wasn't the off season, this kind of stuff wouldn't go on. There's nothing
Yeah.
else to do, so people create
Yeah.
things.
Right. So yeah, so in that sense, I was trying to keep an eye on it just for like, is this something I need to be concerned about? And then also knowing that Dangles had PM'd me personally and said, hey, would you maybe be interested in stepping up to the updater in position? And if so, let me know. And I did. Knowing that I might have to deal with it from an update standpoint, if there was a firmer, like a change of rule or a firmer stance taken on that might have blowback that I would have to share with my updaters. I tried to keep half an eye on it, but I'll admit it, I didn't really go into the signing thread at all. I mostly waited for the dust to settle and see what actually shook out of it. So, and I relied on Kez to sort of keep me in the loop regarding, okay, is there actually a change I need to be aware of, or are we gonna sort of hope it passes because it's off season and everyone is extra angsty.
Yeah. I think
so yeah.
I think that pretty well covers it. We need to move on actually because we're running a little low on time here if we're going to get to the rest of these questions. So let's just keep moving along. This last one's not really a question, but he says, totally going to force you to mention that Russia is sharing Canada's bronze medal because of the line controversy. And I didn't. Is that really happening? Do you know?
No.
Is that really?
No.
You don't
that's
know,
just
or
Clardy
it's not
being,
happening?
It's not happening. That's Clardy being Clardy. Yes,
Okay,
Clardy.
okay.
We understand that you're upset and that you're from Russia. I'm really sorry that your Russian heart is broken. I hope you go drown your sorrows in a lot of happy vodka.
Yeah. Condolences, comrade, I guess. So let's Clardy, you're a character.
Sorry, Clardy. Shout out to our only regular visitor.
No, there was actually a bunch of people in the thread for the last one that we posted saying, "Hey, I listen," and I forget. Oh God, I don't know I forgot the guy's username now.
We're there. Okay, I'm sorry. I love all of you.
There's
I
like
love all of you equally.
So yeah, we're good. We've got a following. I would say I'm going to call it a following.
Okay.
That's we got individual questions. Yeah.
All right. So this one is to me from EJ. And this is Akamai. Which of my cats is my favorite? Is that a mean question? Am I Sophie's choicing you? No, it is not a mean question because technically one of my cats is my mom's and is a complete pain, and one of them is my soft and cuddly child. So my actual cat is my favorite. I have two, Briar and Sprinter, and Briar is a tuxedo who acts like it is always his show, and is extremely tiresome. So I love him a lot, but it's more of a siblings who don't really get along love than a like I would have his back if another cat was bullying him, but other than that, he's left his own devices. Once you pee on my stuff, you really don't go back. Yeah.
Same goes for people, actually.
That's it. So yeah. So and Sprinter is, he's a shit. I'll be honest, but I love him. He'll like bat Briar out of the way and eat his food, and he's really overweight, and we're trying to deal with it, but he just keeps eating, including I'll go really quick because this explains Sprinter's entire personality, but we were having street repairs done, and so we have these like all up and down the street. They're indoor outdoor, and so both of them are sort of wigging out at first, and so Sprinter goes outside, and we think, all right, well, he won't be out for long. The construction crews will freak him out, and he'll come running back. And so he came back once or twice, but then he started to stay out for longer and longer. And then the one day we're driving home, and we're coming home from swim practice, and we see on top of one of the loudest, sort of most heavy-duty machines they've brought for street repairs, and cats with sensitive ears and all, he's sitting in one of the guys' lap, eating his Subway. And so we stopped to sort of, say, hey, Sprinter, what are you doing in this guy's lap? And the guy who's doing the street repairs tells us, oh, is this your cat? We thought he was a stray. He's so friendly, though, so we're really glad he has a home. He really isn't a big fan of mustard. Likes the turkey, not so much for the ham. So my mom says, "You changed your Subway order for a cat," and he's like, "Well, I like both, and he likes it, so yes." So this is Sprinter in a nutshell. He goes around and makes friends with all, and he's really cuddly. He'll like let you rub his belly with no bites, scratches, whatever. He's basically a cat dog. So yes, he's my favorite, and that's not a mean question. I appreciate the question actually because I like to brag about both of them actually. So
Okay.
So anyway, on to you, Rich.
Good. Yes. Okay. EJ's next question is for me. Rich, have you found your forever home with New England? I don't know yet. And
Yes.
this is actually something, and you'll actually notice that I have not extended yet. And my contract will be up at the end of season 31. So I don't know yet. There's still some things I want to see around the league, possibly. I really like New England a lot. Great people, a lot of fun. But
You have to stay. We would miss you. We would really, really miss you.
I would love to stay, and so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen yet. I really don't. And like I said before, there's a lot of people around the league I like, and there's a lot of team cultures I'd like to experience, possibly. So I don't want to say yes, but I don't know.
You're allowed to have people you like. We just have to be your favorite. That's how it works.
So yeah, the answer is I don't know. Yeah, you won't see me signing long term, but I may continue to extend until the end of my career. But I don't think you'll see me sign long term.
I think that's a good policy just in general. You just kind of keep getting the hometown discount, but then you have some flexibility.
My next player is probably going to be a career one team player. So I want to maybe jump around a little bit more with this player. Now with I hadn't kind of decided that until fairly recently that my next player would be probably a career player for one team. So I probably shouldn't say that because maybe that would. I mean, nobody's going to remember by that time, but it might change somebody's policy on drafting a player like mine. Anyway, so I might still jump around a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what to do yet. So, last one?
Yep.
Who do you think is the most likely candidates for SHL Rookie of the Year this upcoming season? I didn't, when I did my predictions, I just copied somebody who I thought had a good one. I think I copied Tanner, actually.
Oh, God, I didn't remember mine. I think someone told me to change mine, and it was so busy. I was like, it's fine, whatever.
No, actually, I did. I specifically copied somebody that had Nolan Angelo as their Rookie of the Year because I think Nolan Angelo is a good pick.
Is he playing up? I thought he was up before.
No, I believe this is his first because I updated him to his SHL build.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But yeah, he's
Awesome.
a Buffalo player, a Stampede player, 500 TPE, which puts him in the kind of upper tier of Buffalo players. So yeah, so he could. I think he's going to be playing second line. Would be my guess. Second line forward. So he'll be getting substantial minutes and power play most likely. And so I mean, I think he's probably a very, very strong candidate. A lot of people are putting Dominic Dieter, and I think that's a mistake. As much as I would love to see Dietz win it, we have too much depth, and I don't think he's going to get the minutes that a guy like Angelo is going to get.
Yeah, I have that issue too. So, but did I put Dietz for my prediction? Yes. Did I change it? No, because I don't care.
Yeah, no, I think Angelo's probably my top pick. There might be a better pick out there. I haven't put a lot of research into it, but I do know Angelo. I think is a good option.
Yeah, I like it. He seems to have slowed down a little bit from his initial foray into the league, but that's pretty normal.
I think so.
So I think if he sticks with it, he'd definitely be a good candidate, especially if he does the kind of thing where he starts to pick up speed towards the end of the season because his TPE starts to match with the sorts of minutes he's playing.
Yep. Yeah. So that's all our questions, unless you have more to add.
No, I got nothing. I think we're probably running down on time, are we not?
Oh, yeah, we're good. We are good for sure because I didn't start my timer right away. I don't think it was late, but we're definitely over an hour. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I guess we'll call it. Hopefully, the preseason should have started by this time next week.
Yeah, so we'll have more to talk about. I think we'll have more. I'm hoping that we should have juniors to talk about as well.
Yes. Yeah, because I know 4-4 did the updates, I think, for preseason.
Yeah, he pulled in preseason updates, but I think Leafs asked him to wait until SHL preseason actually got off the ground to start it. So he actually posted in the updater forum asking if we could do one more Friday update before. So I think he's probably planning to start have a Saturday start maybe for preseason for juniors.
Yeah.
Because I think we're gonna try to get going tomorrow for seniors, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully next week we've got some more like actual league season stuff to talk about, not just off-season stuff and trying to fill time with other less. I mean, I guess it's league-related stuff, but it's like not like current season just because we're not in season. So but yeah, hopefully we'll have some real season stuff to talk about next week.
Yep.
All right, let's. I guess we'll call it there. Thanks for listening, all our return listeners. I was at Clardy, and
I'm
I
sorry,
think
I snubbed you. I didn't mean to.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Acavale.
Avakio?
Sure? There
No
you
idea.
go. Okay, I mean that person though. That username. He said he listens.
Angry squirrel icon man.
So yeah, we'll catch you next week then. Bye bye.
Bye, said Jill.